Welcome to this video. We're going to show you how a student needs to set up their file to be able to use Alteryx Eval. So the first thing a student should do is create a folder where the assignment is. We encourage to create separate folders for assignments. I'm just going to call this Assignment 1. Inside this folder, the student's going to put the data for the assignment and their workflow. So for this one, I'm just going to take the answer file and I'm going to use the Alteryx exam data. So this would be the student loading the Alteryx exam data into the folder, and then I'm going to copy the template into here. Now the first thing we tell students to do is to rename the template to whatever their user ID is. So I'm going to say my user ID is 123ABC. Alright, once we do that, we can open the template into Alteryx and we'll show you how this works. Now in the template you have some basic instructions. We encourage students to read these. Alright, and then we have this little helper to see if they did some of the steps correctly, and then finally we start to build the answers down here. So first, instructions, I just did the first one. Have them set up a directory, put the data files and this template file renamed to their ID. So it should look like this. Now there could be multiple data files. If I have 5 different Excel files or CSV files or whatever else, I can have those listed in here. Second, we need to go to the configuration pane and click workflow. So here's configuration, click workflow. Under here you're going to see several values called ID, last name, and first name. The student must come in here and change this to be their student ID, which for me is 123ABC. They'll put in their last name and then they need to put in their first name. So now with that done, it will be able to automatically grade these. So with that it says don't edit these input and output tools. You can change that depending on what rules you set up. And then if you use container tools, they need to just make sure everything's turned on so that you can run it with just clicking to open this. It won't run containers if they're turned off. So now I've changed those things in the configuration, those workflow variables. I run it and you can see this output is going to tell me if there's problems. So right now it says, is there an error naming it? No error. My name is down here. You can see this error, there's a folder exists. Hey, we do have a problem right now that this folder doesn't exist and there's no name problem in the workflow. That checks to see if this name matches the name I gave the file. And then also it gives this so the student can check to see if they did it correctly. Now, if they didn't do this correctly, so if I come back to my workflow, and it still says enter data here for each of these. When I run this, it will give them errors and say, hey, error, please put in your correct username and all of that. So let me go back. I'll fix it one more time. Again, just click anywhere in here, click on workflow, and these variables need to be changed. 123ABC. Put in your last name and your first name. Now when I ran this, you'll see there was still one more error because I didn't follow all of the instructions. You'll see the error, the folder exists. For this grader to work, what it needs to do is run their workflow and output it as a CSV file, their answers. And it should output it into a folder in their directory. So I'm in assignment 1 for the student. I need to create a new folder and call it output. So again, now the student should have their student file with their name, whatever data files, and this output data file. So now when I run this, you'll see right down here, I've got no errors, and then the student can verify their information. It's good to go. Now how would a student use this? Well, once they start building their workflows, they can put any tool they want to solve it. They just have to start with an input tool and end with an output tool. Now these input and output tools must use relative references. What that means is this test data has to have this period to say, hey, I want it to refer to the location in this folder, this same location. Wherever this file is saved, I want it to see whatever data files are in here. I'll show you what that means. If I would put an input data tool, and I'm going to set up a connection, I'm just going to do files, and I will just easily drag my Alteryx exam data file over, select the sheet. You'll notice normally it gives the full file path. Now the problem is if a student uses this and they submit it, that's different than the grader's computer. That doesn't exist. So you can replace all of this information of where the file path is with just the period. And then it's going to say, hey, we know relative references. We're going to look in the folder. The main folder is wherever this file is. That's what this period means. It's going to find all of this right here, put it in for the period, and then find the file testdata1.xlsx. Similarly, when we output, you're going to see it starts with a period, and then it goes to the output folder. So it's going to start with the period. So in this file structure, it's going to go to the output folder, and then it's going to use that variable user ID underscore problem1. So I can show you real quick. We'll just do a very simple one. We'll put a sort in. We'll sort the data by color ascending. Connect that to the output tool. So now when I run this flow, it will open up the data. Oh, I've got a problem. I have this named wrong. So what I want it to do, I'm going to set up a new connection. Test data 1 doesn't exist. So I'm going to come in here to Files. I'm going to drop in my Alteryx exam data, transaction table, and then I'm going to change this to be a relative reference. And now I have to edit my sorting tool so that it can actually sort by a field that exists. Transaction ID ascending. So now when I run it, it's opening up that data file, it's sorting it, and it outputs it. So what you can see is it will automatically output the CSV file with my student ID underscore problem1. And so now I can build as many solutions off here. As long as I output whatever solution as a separate CSV file, it will save it here. Then the grader will go through and automatically compare this solution to the correct answer key and give credit, full credit, partial credit as described in the paper. So the real key, students read the instructions. You have to set up your folder, just to reiterate, with your file, the template, renamed your student ID, any data files, and then the output folder. Then once you're in that template, just come in and fill out these 3 variables to put in your ID, your last name, and your first name. The last name and first name are just for if a teacher needs to go back and open up a file and see whose it was. This makes it a lot easier to find who did it. If the students don't do this, what will happen is I will run this, and you'll see in the output folder, it'll say enter data underscore problem1. Now, if multiple students do the same thing, they don't put in the workflow, they will just overwrite again and again and again, so they won't be graded. So you'll have to manually grade each of those student problems if they don't follow these instructions. All right, hopefully that helps. Good luck and happy grading.